Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for September 1st, 2025. Happy Labor Day to you, and happy September. And now that we are in a new month, let's take a look at, as we typically do every single month, but especially this month, as it is now the peak of the hurricane season officially. Well, we were in the peak of the hurricane season since August 20th, but September is now officially the peak month, the main month of the hurricane season, where we see the most amount of activity. And that is certainly prevalent and very obvious when you look at tropical cyclone points of origin in the first 10 days of September. Just about anywhere you can expect activity to occur, all the way from right off the coast of Africa, in some cases pretty much still almost on the coast of Africa, all the way till the Western Caribbean and even into the subtropics. Activity occurs pretty much everywhere, and that is because we are now heading into the peak time of the hurricane season. And how can you look at it on the graph of climatology? I'm pretty sure you might have seen this graph before. A lot of people use it, especially when describing activity during the peak of the hurricane season. And we are pretty much on this first little peak here in early September, right at September 1st. And we are already ramping up quite a bit from August, where we had activity. And now we are just days away from the peak day of the hurricane season, which is September 10th, and that is roughly where the second peak is. And then from there, activity slowly begins to calm down as we head into the late September, then into October, and then eventually on into November, and then the end of the hurricane season into November 30th. So we are now pretty much entering right at the peak time of hurricane season. And with that being said, we have on the peak time of the hurricane season, on the first day of the peak month, we have an area of interest that we are monitoring in the Eastern Atlantic. And if you've not been watching for the past several days, this has been an area that we've been watching for at least since last week. And it looks like we're probably going to have to watch this area for the entirety of this upcoming week, and probably beyond that as well, as this might be our next tropical system that'll develop here in the Atlantic, and then probably last for quite a bit of while after that. Right now, National Hurricane Center giving a chance of development at 50% over the next 7 days. So we're now up to a coin flip, and it's probably going to go beyond that in the coming days too. And I think personally, this probably has a pretty good shot at becoming our next tropical storm here, or name system in the very least, in the Atlantic. And the National Hurricane Center is saying that a tropical wave located in the far eastern Atlantic, it's actually just splashed down yesterday off the coast of Africa. And it's going to move south. It's southeast of the Cabo Verde Islands, producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms, and environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the system. And of course, they say a tropical depression could form by the middle or latter part of this week. And then we're going to have to watch beyond then to see what it does, because again, I think we'll probably be having to watch this system for quite a bit of time, but pretty much expected, as we are now in the month of September. And this is when really things begin to heat up, and we're probably going to see a lot of stuff heat up with this area, and I'll show you towards the end of the video, probably beyond. This is just the beginning. But in the Eastern Pacific, there's also activity too. There's Tropical Storm Kiko, and this is now strengthening, and this is probably going to become a hurricane as it moves on off to the west here in the Pacific. Going to make its way into the Central Pacific, and probably will not impact land, but I've seen some talk about Hawaii needing to keep an eye out on Kiko in the longer range, obviously for precautionary measures. But right now, Kiko is a moderate to high-end tropical storm, 60 miles per hour, minimum central pressure of 998 millibars. It's located at 14.0 north. If you're using a hurricane tracking map and you like to, fill in the dots, 14.0 north, 126.3 west, and it is moving west at 8 miles per hour. And we also have another area of interest here right off the coast of Mexico. This is Invest 94E, and this is likely to develop too, and will probably become our next named storm. But we'll address this later on. But for now, here's Kiko, and you can see on satellite. National Hurricane Center said this is moving at 8 miles per hour, but almost looks stalled on the latest satellite frame. But anyways, looking like a pretty decent tropical storm this afternoon. Kind of has that curlish look to it, where we have a banding feature and a general structure that kind of spirals inward. Definitely a sign of a storm that has a decent structure and is probably strengthening once again, and it'll probably continue to strengthen over the next coming days. Probably going to become a hurricane by tomorrow, and then strengthen further throughout the week. I'm not sure what the current intensity forecast is by the National Hurricane Center. Let's actually take a look at that really quickly and see what they forecast. I like to go to the discussion. They have this peaking at Category 2 intensity. And I also mentioned yesterday that some of the hurricane models had it strengthening further to major hurricane intensity, so we'll see if that happens. But this is going to be a hurricane nonetheless, and probably remain a hurricane for the next week or so. But right now in the Atlantic, we also have stuff to monitor. Not as much as the Pacific, obviously, but that's probably going to change very soon. And it's all going to start off with our tropical wave here that we have in the Eastern Atlantic. And you can definitely see we have quite a massive clouds here just south of the Cabo Verde Islands. And again, this is associated with a tropical wave that has just moved off the coast of Africa yesterday. And it shows up here on the NHC Tropical Ocean Analysis. They officially designate it a tropical wave here. And again, this just moved off the coast of Africa yesterday. And this is the wave that is obviously associated with the moderate chance of development that we have in the MDR over the next week. And again, this is really a wave that we're going to have to watch very closely. And I'll just really quickly bring you back to satellite right now. Probably going to be a little bit slow to develop, though, over the next several days, because for one, you could see that showers and thunderstorms wise, not very organized right now, has a little bit of dry air to the north. And this is also interacting with the ITCZ, the Intertropical Convergence Zone here in the southern MDR. So not really able to organize too much right now, kind of getting strung out. And you could actually see that in the 850 millibar vorticity map. And this is by University of Wisconsin. I love using this map, obviously. And you can see here in the Eastern Atlantic, very strung out in vorticity right now. Energy is not concentrating yet like you would typically see in a tropical system. So this is probably going to take a few days to, really be able to consolidate and get going. Plus, we also have a TUT, which is somewhere in the Western MDR and here. And this is actually also going to play a factor over the next several days as this eventually moves on westward and probably develops somewhere in the central MDR. This will have to deal with the TUT, otherwise known as a tropical upper tropospheric trough, and pretty much that brings some dry air and wind shear whenever a storm is in its path. So it's not obviously a favorable thing. But beyond that, I actually mentioned this yesterday, but beyond that, the models seem to, maintain it. It is able to keep itself together as it interacts with the TUT, and then eventually a lot of the models beyond the week out time frame, heading into the 10-day, 10, 11, 12-day time frame, they bring this into the Western Atlantic, and some of the models really do strengthen it. And I'll show you here with the European ensembles. You could see this goes out towards the next 10 days. Obviously, there's a lot of activity here in the MDR, so that checks out that we have a very strong signal that something is going to happen here. But notice, especially in the next several days, as we get towards the 10-day time frame, you start to notice a lot more of these aggressive model signals here. As this heads towards the Western MDR, and this is probably as conditions become more favorable as it heads further west after it, stops dealing with whatever tut and unfavorable conditions it'll have to deal with in the MDR. And some of the Euro ensembles really do blow this up. In fact, there's even an ensemble here that I see 930, and that, I mean, not saying that that's going to happen, but you do see here, especially over the next 10 days, quite a few decently strong ensemble runs. So this has a lot of potential that we're going to have to watch and see whether or not it will materialize over the next week and likely longer. And this is also going to be one long heck of tracking, because you could also see as well huge spread in the forecast in the ensembles. And this is, again, because of the many variable factors that it's going to have to deal with. One including how quickly does it develop in the short term, because as I said, this is right now embedded within the ITCZ. So it's going to matter if it's able to consolidate in the short term, or is it going to be strung out because of the ITCZ? And that too will also impact how much it strengthens, especially further down the line, and of course where it tracks. And as obvious, you could see all of that uncertainty really play out in the Euro ensembles. But in the very least, we do know that there is a signal, and probably and definitely a very strong signal on the Euro ensembles. And then you could also see beyond that, heading into the 10-day time frame, this is roughly as we get towards mid-September, already some activity beginning to pop up behind this in the Eastern Atlantic, and probably a signal of more activity that will follow behind whatever happens here in the next few days. Again, all on cue as we are now heading into the month of September. So let's show you what the GFS shows, since we're now, model time. And this is a scenario, I would say, more if the wave that we have here develops very quickly. In the shorter term, the GFS develops this already as we head towards the middle to the latter portion of this week. And already a pretty decent tropical storm in the eastern MDR, and obviously strengthens quite a bit. Maybe it's more than a tropical storm here. And because of that, the GFS takes us on a more northerly route. It deals with the tut that's out here in the east, in the MDR and in the open Atlantic a lot more, and then it weakens a little bit, and then as we head towards late next week, begins to strengthen once again once it gets past it, further on into the western, but in this case more the northern Atlantic. And so obviously the GFS is more of a signal of a storm that develops much quicker. And as a result of that, obviously, common sense goes further north. The Euro, on the other hand, and I'm going to show you the 6Z because I'm pretty sure the 12Z is already out, but I'll have to go to another website for that because it takes a while for the 12Z to come out on Tropical Tidbits for some reason. Actually, I think I could go to the EC Fast, and this is actually a version of the Euro that just runs faster, but not as many model runs. It's very complicated. You just got to learn how to deal with Tropical Tidbits. It's very complicated, but at least we have some version of the 12Z Euro out. So I'm actually going to use this, although it's not actually fully loaded yet. So we'll just take it out to whatever the 12Z Euro shows, and the 12Z Euro definitely more in line with what the Euro has been showing over the last few runs. Slower developing storm, but it does develop. So there's model consensus on at least one thing, that this is more than likely going to develop. So we have that. But the Euro develops this a little bit slower, a little bit lower in latitude. And I would assume that whatever happens here, this probably ends up much further south and much closer to the islands. And again, this is probably because it takes a little bit more time to develop. Doesn't really come together till the very end of this week, around Saturday and Sunday. So around the 6th or the 7th. And then we really begin to see this take off after that. So there's a lot to watch for with this area of interest here over the next week. And it's really going to be a wait and see game, because we're going to have to watch multiple variables, including the ITCZ, how quickly it develops, how does it interact with the TUT here in the Western MDR, which will be somewhere right in here, and that'll impart shear and dry air. If it interacts with it too much, lots to go over, and this will definitely have implications on track. And this is all the beauty of hurricane season, especially now at this time where we are in September. We typically have a lot to go over anyway, so makes sense that we have all of this to talk about right now. And we're probably going to have much more beyond this because taking a look at the velocity potential chart, as we head into the month of September, activity really begins to ramp up, but conditions are also going to become much more favorable in the Atlantic too. And this is because of velocity potential anomalies becoming much more favorable in the Atlantic over the next several weeks. And this is the forecast for right now. You could see, and this is, I'll actually point you first to why we've been inactive or not as active, especially compared to mid-August when we had storms like Erin. And that's because we had a lot of these oranges and yellows here in the Atlantic basin, which is roughly in this part of the chart, just to get your geographical sensing, your sense of where we are geographically located. So in this part of the chart, this is generally the Atlantic basin. Through here, we have lots of sinking air and unfavorable velocity potential anomalies because the MJO was not in the Atlantic part of the basin as it was earlier in the month, which is how we had Erin. But that's going to change, especially within the next week or so. I think this is a convectively coupled Kelvin wave that's going to move through. And for one, this helped spark up the activity that we have in the Eastern Pacific right now. And again, as I mentioned, the activity that we had in the Eastern Pacific, all a result of things becoming more favorable for activity for them. And it was all going to translate to the Atlantic at some point, and that's going to happen over the next week. So this is also going to help in terms of juicing up our wave in the Eastern Atlantic. And then beyond that, we have a much more solid cell of rising air that also sets up as we head towards the middle to latter portion of this month. So pretty much meaning whatever we have now, again, still just the beginning. We probably have a long month to go. September is the peak month of the hurricane season, so typically this month is when we have the most amount of activity, so you can bet that we're going to have a lot to go over throughout this entire month. So if you are new to my channel and you like my content, like this video, you like what you saw today, I would really appreciate if you comment any thoughts you might have, and subscribe, and as well turn on the notification bell too, because I'm uploading these videos every single day, and we're going to be doing this till the end of the hurricane season. From now till November 30th, expect these videos every single day, but especially now, since we are in the month of September, we are right in the peak of the hurricane season, and things are really going to ramp up, and I think it all starts with this area that we are watching in the Eastern Atlantic. But that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. And again, like, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll, as always, have more for you tomorrow.